Saklikent means hidden city in Turkish, and the name is fitting. It's hidden deep in southwestern Türkiye and does feel like a place from a storybook. And if you get here before the high tourist season, you can imagine yourself an explorer, stumbling upon the ruins and secret waterfalls. In fact, this is how Saklikent got discovered. It wasn't widely known until a local shepherd stumbled upon it while chasing a lost goat in the late 1980s. In the low season, this place is quiet and peaceful, with just the sound of the river rushing below your feet. In the high season, it's a bit of a different story. So stay tuned for some Saklikent drama at the end of this video. Saklikent Gorge is one of the deepest canyons in the world. It reaches up to 300 meters in depth and stretches for over 18 kilometers. But here's the catch. Unless you're a skilled climber or an experienced adventurer with equipment, you will only be able to hike about 4 kilometers of it. The rest of the route involves ropes, rock climbing experience, fancy gear, and a lot of self-confidence. But even the 4 kilometers that are open to the general public are not your average hike. Here's why. First, you will be wading through icy, sometimes waist-deep water. In fact, Saklikent is kind of famous for the temperature shock you may experience when you first step into the cold stream, even in the blazing heat of July and August. This is because the snow melt from the Taurus Mountains feeds the gorge all year round. And this makes Saklikent a very interesting hike. The moment you step into the water, the cold jolts your body awake. It's like nature's espresso shot. And instead of battling the heat you would on any summer hike in Türkiye, you will be walking through the gorge naturally refreshed. Second, from time to time you will need to climb up slippery rocks, and depending on the time of the year and the water level in the gorge, this may require seeking help from fellow hikers or local tour guides. In general, I'd say it's best to do this hike with a companion. In low season it gets pretty empty here and there is no cell service in most of the gorge. Local guides will offer their services quite insistently and for an additional fee, but you may find it more comfortable doing this hike with someone you know. The trail itself is not particularly complicated, it's more mysterious and at times visually overwhelming, because when you look up you realize that you are walking down a narrow path cut in between tall cliffs. The trail will take you to a small waterfall, which signifies the end of the hike for those not carrying equipment. Third, hiking the canyon comes with a side of wellness. The mud that you will see in the canyon is actually mineral-rich clay. The mud comes from the erosion of the limestone and mineral deposits in the canyon walls and is loaded with elements like magnesium, potassium, and calcium. Slathering your face with canyon mud has become a sort of spontaneous spa ritual for visitors. Some people believe that it's great for tight pores, smooth skin, and detoxifying. Others just do it for fun to take photos, or use the mud to organically carve their names into the canyon walls. A great thing about Saklikent is that it offers lots of other activities in addition to or instead of hiking. So if you're traveling here in a group, which includes non-hikers, there will be plenty for them to do while you're conquering the trail. One of the most relaxing things to do in Saklikent is grabbing a coffee at one of the Riverside cafes. There is actually one right at the start of the trail. Here you can get a piping hot cup of coffee and enjoy it with your feet cooling in the mountain stream. You can go tubing, kayaking down the mountain river, get a foot spa from the fish doctor, or indulge in a photo shoot at one of these risky locations. Saklikent is also known for its on-the-water restaurants. You've probably seen them on Instagram. One of the most popular restaurant complexes is called Saklikent Paradise Park. It attracts visitors with bright colors, hammocks, the relaxing sound of watermills, and friendly French fry-loving geese. These are great places to stop by to cool down by the stream, swing in a hammock with a cup of chai, and take a few photos. But when it comes to food and prices, well, you may find better options elsewhere. For example, this simple-looking restaurant right by the entrance to the canyon has affordable and delicious balık ekmek, a signature fish sandwich in Türkiye, fresh pomegranate juice, and cooling views of the stream below. If you have more time to spare, you could also take a walk through the paved, town-like part of Saklikent. There are just a few very small streets lined with souvenir stalls and fruit shops, but it's a relaxing walk to take after the hike. Chances are you will be stopping by Saklikent in summer. This is the busiest season in Türkiye and probably the most convenient time to visit Saklikent when it comes to weather. But by then, the canyon gets pretty crowded. So if you're looking for a more solitary experience, you may want to stop by the canyon in April or May. It's hot enough to not get too overwhelmed by the cold stream, and you will actually be able to enjoy the explorer effect as you walk through the canyon in solitude. Another important thing to take into account is the weather. Don't plan your trip to the canyon if it's been raining recently. In this case, the water level will rise and you most likely won't be allowed to go far. See how deep the water gets here? Almost a swim. If you're stopping by the town of Fethiye, which is highly recommended, you can hop on a small bus called dolmus and be in Saklikent in about an hour. If you're traveling from further away, like Antalya, you will have the option of going with an organized tour. Or you can get a bus ticket to one of the nearest towns, like Fethiye or Seydikemer, and then hop on a dolmus to get to Saklikent. Naturally, traveling with your own car would be the best option, because then you may also consider an overnight stay. If you're up for an overnight adventure, there is an interesting camp and treehouse right by the entrance to the canyon. I'm not sure if there is anything happening here after sunset, as the canyon itself closes rather early, around 6 p.m. But it could definitely be a fun side quest, sleeping in a treehouse or a tent surrounded by the quiet of nature and the sounds of the mountain river flowing through the canyon. Now, when I make these types of videos where I really want to recommend a location, I like to check out what others think too. The easiest place to do so are Google Map reviews. So, is there anything people don't like about Saklikent? Actually, there is quite a bit. So, let's start with this review. To sum it up, some people simply don't seem to enjoy the experience itself, and I can see why. It's not at all comfortable. You will indeed be walking waist deep in mud and cold water and climbing over slippery rocks. This whole hike is all about the water. So if this is something you can't see yourself enjoying, you would probably not consider Saklikent a happy place.
It's a really interesting hike. I don't know if anyone can hear me, but this is a hike. Look at this. Nothing to say really, it's just a really fun hike.
Now, there are several negative reviews that mention local guides and overall park organization. And once again, I can see what they mean. The way the guides operate at the park is a bit different than in other national parks I've been to. For example, they will gather in the more difficult parts of the trail, wait for passing hikers, and offer guided tours for an additional fee. I don't think there is anything wrong with charging people for a service, but they would often use some sort of light intimidation tactics to convince you that you need help. In our case, we were told that a particular part of the trail was too difficult to handle without a guide, which turned out not to be the case. But what gives this an off feeling is that you're still allowed to hike the trail alone, even with the guides being very adamant that this is too dangerous. So this is just something to keep in mind when exploring Saklikent. You may not always get the most accurate information from the park guides, and their services are more commercially oriented than what you might expect. Now, this one covers a lot of grievances at once. I can't argue with the fact that the food and drinks cost more in Saklikent than outside the park area. But to be honest, with the ongoing inflation in Türkiye, the prices didn't strike me as particularly high. Tripping and injuring yourself at the park is a real possibility, like with any hiking trail. But yes, Saklikent takes this to a slightly higher level as you are hiking in water and climbing over slippery rocks. There are protective helmets given out free of charge at the entrance to the canyon, but very few people wear them. You can, and should, also buy, rent, or bring your own water shoes, which make the trail less slippery. You can get a pair right as you enter the canyon. But again, lots of people seem to ignore this precaution and go on hiking the trail barefoot or in sneakers. But I have to say that when you hike in Saklikent, safety is mostly in your own hands. There are no instructions given on what you should or shouldn't do, no security personnel inside the canyon, and like I've said, your safety is pretty much all on you.
And my bag is not ready. So yeah, bring waterproof bags for your gear from Saklikent. Tip.
So you have to be careful, evaluate your abilities realistically, and not take unnecessary risks. In general, it's not a good idea to do the trail alone. As I've mentioned earlier, there is no self-service in the canyon, and should you slip or get stuck, you will have no way of calling for help. But summing it all up, naturally, Saklikent is a stunning place. It's wild, it's interesting, and after you escape the initial crowds and venture deeper into the canyon, it can be a real explorer experience. But like so many great destinations, it has flaws that are mostly human-made. So I would definitely put Saklikent on the list of must visits when you are in Türkiye, but hey, I'm also only human. I hope this video has been at least a little bit helpful in planning your next trip, and I'd be happy to see you on the next adventure, with a latte, of course. Have a wonderful day.